I'm going to be very, very vulnerable right now. This game made me cry at the end.
Okay, because there's lots of deep emotions.
And I think it hit emotionally harder because inside his house, I found something that he never mentioned. But in his house, I found on the table a sonogram.
Oh yes, that's true. He doesn't mention. That's true. Again, that's left to some interpretation as well, right? Because he doesn't
mention that at all. But no. I interpreted with the sonogram on the table that his wife Esther, that passed away by this drunkard in a car accident, was pregnant, and that got me good.
Of course, it's one of those
that got me extremely emotional. Hello and welcome back to a brand new episode of everyone's favorite podcast, the Critical Arcade Podcast. I'm your co-host, Nick.
And I'm Dave.
Hello, Dave.
Hello, Nick. You well?
Have you ever played a walking simulator?
Yes. Not on purpose, though. Not really the games I kind of get into.
That's a wild answer. What do you mean not on purpose?
I'm one of these, I guess, old school type people. If it's just walking and not much else, is it actually a game? Like walking simulators. Did you ever like on school trips, be it or yourself, ever go to like museums where they gave you that headset you put on, and then you'd start in the corner and go around, and the headset would tell you what each display and stuff means and stuff?
Oh yes, of course.
The walking simulators for me are like the same thing. It's interesting, sure. Does it have a narrative, kinda? Do I find immense joy in doing it? Not so much. And
I hear you.
You must have played a walking simulator too.
I have. The other day I played The Invincible. Heard of it?
No, I know that. Like I said, I know Invincible, the latest TV program that's on TV. What's this game then?
The Invincible is a story about, I think, in the 1960s by some Polish author. I'm not going to try and pronounce his name. It's a story about an expedition that goes to Mars and finds an old alien civilization, and also what ruined this civilization. They turned the story into a game, and I was quite excited for it because it's made by Starwood Industries, who's got some talent from... Oh, what's the studio called? CD Projekt Red.
Wow, that's some serious talent by all accounts.
I know. So I was looking forward to the game quite a lot, and I was a tad disappointed when I finally played it, and I realized it's a walking simulator.
Yes, that's later on. That's why in this episode, that's the problem with walking simulator games, in my opinion.
They're not very
No, exactly.
You're right. They're not very exciting.
They're not, and today's game, I would even put down on the lower end of that roster.
The lower end of the
okay.
Sims.
Okay, let's jump straight in. Okay, this week's game is called Dear Esther, which is kind of like an interesting title. It's of course Esther's in the, I don't know, it seems like an ancient name nowadays. When was the last person you heard being called Esther? But this, I had so much fun kind of even looking up what this studio was, because it took me turns and corridors I never saw coming. So Dear
the
Esther,
Chinese room?
Yes! The first thing you go in, it's Dear Esther. It's set in the Hebrides of Scotland, and it's developed and published by a company called The Chinese Room. And I was like, what? That's a crazy thing for, like, the Chinese. And then I read further, and it's British, and it's in Brighton. And I thought, why are they called The Chinese Room? And then they explain why they're called The Chinese Room. Now, the company itself was originally a company that just used to mod Half-Life 2 and stuff like that. Which
Yes, and that's where this comes from.
Yes, which is very cool. Lots of games came from that, like the Stanley Parable and all the other games.
Exactly, yes. As I'm pretty sure, like you, have played loads of Half-Life 2 mods.
Yes,
on the Source engine.
So. Yes, very. It was a very good engine, still to this day, and lots very easily modded. Did you find out what the Chinese Room was, or the experiment was, or why it was called that?
Why the development company is called the Chinese Room?
Yes.
No.
Oh, it's actually, like, again, in today's world we live in, it's actually really, really clever. It's like a really old, kind of like a Schrodinger's cat type thing, where if you feed Chinese characters to an AI or a computer system, and then feed it English ones, and you ask it to translate those characters into Chinese or English, vice versa, right? It will do it. But if you feed those same things to a human under the door, a human will repeat the same thing, but will have an understanding of it compared to a computer. So it's fundamentally kind of like a rational aspect that computers can never really supersede human thoughts, because we go to understanding where it goes to resource finding and extrapolating.
I see.
I was like, wow, this is the deepest like naming of a company I've ever actually even seen in a very long time. But I thought it was a really cool kind of philosophy. I didn't expect a company set in Britain to call themselves the Chinese Room. I thought it was kind of cool.
That's way better than just calling your company Epic Games.
Nice. I love that. That was yeah. So
isn't it? It is
stupid.
though.
I agree. You can see the board meeting. What should we call ourselves? Let's just call ourselves Epic. Like the
because you know what,
right?
You know what we are. You know what we are.
Yeah.
That's it. We're awesome.
Do you ever wonder what would happen to them if they didn't have Fortnite? But anyway,
not much. All I know is Epic's been around for decades.
Oh,
and they only got
truly
Fortnite.
has.
They only got Fortnite about 9 years ago.
That's true. They actually have been
made
made
Fortnite.
But did you know that this game actually sold really well? Like a game I'd never heard of. Have you ever heard
Dear
this
Esther?
game? Yeah.
Really? Okay, no.
As of 2013, before the other multi platform, 850,000 copies.
Whoa.
I was like, what?
Whoa. Okay,
what?
That's way more than I was expecting. Could it be just because it's been around for so long?
It has been around for a long time.
For the longest time, I read this was the only walking simulator available. So much
yeah.
Let's say Dark Souls was the pioneer of the Souls-like genre, that and Demon Souls, of course. Dear Esther was the pioneer for the, admittedly, much less exciting walking simulator genre.
That's it. That's an interesting tidbit, because you could be right. Not that I kept track of walking simulators, but this, 2013, 2012.
That's a couple. You've got Gone Home, Firewatch,
True.
both of which we've not played. List, if you're hearing.
Yes. Like Firewatch, yes, I have actually played Gone Home, sorry.
Oh, you have?
I have. But again, those are not bad walking simulators, because there's an aspect to those that this game doesn't have. But anyway, okay, narrative.
Let's start.
Kind of like the main point to walking simulators to some degree, right? You are walking from A to B to kind of flesh out a story.
Yeah.
Right? That would be the premise of a lot of walking simulators. This has an interesting, a different way of telling the story. So fundamentally, it's such a...
Okay, you go ahead.
Fundamentally, you are a gentleman. You're unknown, right? You haven't got a name, do you?
Mm-mm.
Okay, I thought so. You are you. You have moved to a remote island in the Hebrides, which is a part of Scotland. And because, I don't know, spoilers, because of a loss in your life, you've become obsessed with the island a bit. You've missed the loved one that you have, and you contemplate the accident that happened to the loved one, and the reasons why, and the person who did it accidentally or not accidentally. There's a lot of pondering in this game, right? This leaves you to think a lot.
Yes.
And
it absolutely does.
And as you walk around the island, and much like any walking simulator, it kind of prompts you with a bit more of the story, or a bit more of the background of the story, or even an interesting way they do is even the obsession of a native from years ago with the island itself as well, kind of giving you a bit of lore into the island as you walk around. But in the long run, this is kind of a narrative about coping with death or not coping with death. What would you say? How did you narratively think this would try to...
you hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
But the narration, the narrator, you, the person walking through this maybe island, is extremely vague and detached.
Yes, very detached.
You'd be walking across a hill and you'd have some tombstones, I think, and he'd be talking about how long it took for the police to come to the scene of the accident. What you're hearing, what you're listening to, is far removed from what you're actually seeing and walking.
Oh yes, very much so. Very much so. This is literally being in someone's mind as they walk around a landscape that is kind of cold and isolating to some degree.
And he never directly explains everything that happened. You're just kind of expected to listen to what he says. Sometimes it's very, very, very little to do with what actually happened, and sometimes he directly tells you a drunkard drove into my wife and I. From the very start, I found it a bit difficult to kind of connect, to concentrate, to focus on what he was saying.
That's very true. As like a carrot on a stick method of storytelling, it's not the most endearing at the very beginning.
No,
because you don't really have any lore to start off with. You hear him talking about the inscriptions on the side of the mountains in regards to death and people
and all the shepherds on this island had one Bible that they shared amongst all of them until a tourist took it.
So there's a lot of meandering thoughts that he has that goes through his head, but to some degree I believe that's how a lot of people kind of not cope, it's how they process things, right? They become eerily obsessed with side quests or just other things that is interesting, but you're trying to do that whilst coping with the tragedy you've gone with, which it kind of slowly pulls you down that narrative to some degree, and ends on a pretty dramatic note. I won't go into exactly what it is, but it allows you to kind of guess what it actually all meant. Was it all symbolic? Was it all actually physical and actually happened? Again, it's a game to make you think about something when you're done.
Definitely, As the main character kind of wanders through the island and ponders what happened and obsesses over everything on this island and the crash and surrounding those two facts, so does this game prompt you as the player to do the same. Not necessarily about the island and the event of his wife, but other things, such as the main emotional cause of this game. Grief and guilt. Loss, his obsession with the island, and you could even say mental collapse, because at certain parts, I didn't even feel like this island we are traveling on is real. There could just be a mental construct he's using to cope with loss. They kind of put that forwards quite a lot as well, because it's you're the only one on the island. It's also abandoned to a half a degree in regards to what's around, the shipwrecks and the likes. It felt like a very Lost the TV series type moment. Like, is this a reality? This his dream state that he thinks about things in? And it's got a very open. Like, I presume we had the same ending. Like, I didn't quite look at it. Did you climb up the tower? Oh yes, I did.
Okay. So it was the same kind of ending to it. You can fill in the gaps there.
I mean, there is one part of this game that got me pretty good. There's one part of this game that got me pretty good. You can actually find it in like the second, I can call it chapter. Ladies and gents, this is going to be just, I don't even want to call this a spoiler, but I found one thing. In the second chapter, you can climb up to his house, his bothy, and inside I found something that really grabbed me emotionally and carried me up until the end of the game. That I'm going to be very, very vulnerable right now. This game made me cry at the end.
Okay, because there's lots of deep emotions.
And I think it hit emotionally harder because inside his house, I found something that he never mentioned, or I couldn't hear him mention it at all. But in his house, I found on the table, sitting, isolated, a sonogram.
Oh, yes. Yes, that's true. He doesn't mention... That's true. Again, that's left to some interpretation as well, right? Because he doesn't
Exactly. He doesn't mention that at all. But
No.
I interpreted with the sonogram on the table that his wife, Esther, that passed away by this drunkard in a car accident, was pregnant. And that got me good.
Of course. It's one of those...
That got me
absolutely...
extremely emotional.
The only... a lot of this... Now, granted, they do say that playing it through twice or a third time, you can actually open a little bit of dialogue that you wouldn't have heard before because you may have not walked in the certain path that you're supposed to walk. One thing I never also really got in this regard was why there were so many just chemical formula on the walls of caves
and
like stuff like that.
What? Chemical formula and electronic plans.
Yes, yeah, like circuitry and the likes, right?
Exactly, circuitry. Yes, you got it. Why?
I don't know. I was trying to piece that together. I was trying to piece that all together. Like, I even looked up the chemical symbols to thinking, oh, maybe, if you add all the chemical symbols later on, it spells out something or some kind of inner workings of a puzzle there. But there wasn't, to my knowledge.
If you put all the circuitry together, get all...
Yes.
It's going to say Iron Man Returns in
yes,
MCU.
it's a trailer for the MCU universe and stuff like that. Yeah.
Exactly. Avengers 5.
But that's potentially, I'm just too dumb to follow. Maybe there are smarter people that are like, oh, yes, I understand, because that's the equation for salt and that's the equation for mercury. He means seagulls or something. I don't know. There's a lot into it that makes you just go, okay. But the story does slowly kind of grab you. The different narratives himself, be it the original inhabitants of the island, the guy who potentially caused the accident or did cause the accident of you and your wife, and then his just thoughts about himself and his future and or lack thereof, depending on which way you want to see this.
It's a game that talks about some heavy stuff and is one of the extremely few video games that doesn't stumble over it.
Oh, that's very true. And this is one of those games like you if somebody has suffered through something, it's kind of one of those games that could be cathartic in some way and say, try this because it's everyone goes through these types of things. It's one of those games that's supposed to make you feel something. And
yes, it definitely did in my case.
Yeah, and without giving away too many things, that's kind of the narrative. It is one of the better points of the game. I'd say it's one of the highlights of the game. The narrative is kind of well written. I'll give you kind of intellectually written to some degree, because even some of the words I was like, what the hell is that?
Exactly.
No, I'm not like a super smart guy.
By this
I was like,
quite quick.
Whoa, what are we talking about? And I'm from England, not Scotland. I was like, what are we? I like the good old-fashioned words.
Dave, you're Chinese. You're supposed to understand what they say.
Exactly right. So yeah, it's a good listen, which is a weird thing to say about a game.
It is a good listen. It's a good walk.
Yes, it is a good walk. Again, strange like pluses in regards to game. Okay, visually, what did you think?
Being a good walk, I'd say that this isn't that cutting edge. It's not a technical powerhouse.
It is not.
It's not got super graphical fidelity like some games we've reviewed. Resident Evil Requiem, Pragmata, Saros. It's definitely not that.
No, of course not.
We played the Landmark Edition, which released in 2018, but Dear Esther is a game that released in 2012 from a Half-Life 2 mod that released, I don't know, 2008, 2006?
Yeah, something like that. I don't even want to look at it because that makes me feel older, but yeah, you're right. It was around about that time. No.
But visually, there were some parts of this game that really got me to stop and look around, mainly in the caves, because that was very, very good. But the strongest aspect of this game, visually, that I enjoyed was that they created believable environments instead of needing to make video game levels, if that makes sense.
No, I don't know. I agree entirely. I've written down here much myself the actual the setting on this island in the Hebrides.
Yes.
The weather being normal Scottish weather, being grey and cloudy, and again the isolation of the island in itself leads counters or balances with the narrative. you are a man who feels gloomy, who feels dark. He's isolated. By his own choice, he's isolated. He didn't want to deal with people. It kind of adds, the visuals add to the melancholy of what he's thinking right now, and kind of walking through it for like using the cliche again. And it felt cold. It
did feel cold.
If you live in Scotland, that's fairly normal. But yeah, it added the eeriness of the weather and the quiet. No one else is around. There's not even really much of anything there. Like even how you got to the island to some degree. And that's why Nick kind of concluded to the fact that, is this a real area? Is this just...
Is it? I don't know.
No, it does do that a lot.
At times, it definitely does not feel like it. Absolutely. You'd be walking across a path on this island, and all of a sudden there'd be this gaping hole next to you, and you cannot see the bottom.
Yes.
I was just saying that this game creates believable environments, but then you're struck with something like this.
Yes. Did you jump down that hole, right? Did you jump down the hole? I guess
no, I
you
didn't.
Have to. You can. I don't know if it was that hole or others, but is that one you can jump under or jump in? Sorry, and then you go into water, and it does kind of that blend to the car crash. If you go into the water, it does this underwater scene where you see like the car wreckage and like the crash, I thought again visually it's kind of cliched now, but it's still a very good way to interpret.
It is.
You know, a flashback, for lack of a better way of doing it, but it's all in still screen.
I mean, if the island is real, if this really is a walk that the character goes through, that's definitely not real.
No, of course. Yeah, no, agreed. So it does.
That'd be dumb.
But then that teeters on the fact: is this whole thing real or not, or is it just I don't know, which is fun.
I really enjoy these games that gives you more questions than it does answers.
Exactly. No,
right?
Exactly.
It's a show, don't tell type of mentality, and I enjoy if things are just left open to interpretation. It's good. People need to interpret more.
Oh, agreed entirely. It's how we evolve and how we write more and do things, and I agree. This leaves a lot to interpretation, visually as well as narrative. Visually.
I think my favorite part visually from this entire game was looking down onto the island from atop the radio tower.
That's kind of a kind of pivotal moment in the game by all accounts.
Oh, absolutely. That was my favorite part, and the one that struck me the most, like I said earlier, is finding the sonogram on the table. That is some peak visual storytelling.
No, very, very true.
That's what it's all about.
Agreed. So it does that well. So narrative it does well. Visuals are not too bad. Does a lot of the storytelling along with it. Anything else for visuals? Should we go to audio?
Let's go to audio.
Mr. Audio Man, what did you think of the audio?
So, I usually talk about how audio is one of the most important parts of any type of video game, which is why you should turn off your second monitor, close the streamer you're looking at, and immerse yourself in the audio of the game you're playing.
Except for if you're listening to a Critical Arcade podcast, that's allowed.
Okay, that's the only exception.
Exactly.
That's the only exception. The audio for this game, it doesn't have any sound effects really. Maybe just the ambience of the wind and the caves and the howling. But the two main parts of the audio in this case, obviously, is the voiceover, the narrative.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, the narration, and the soundtrack.
Well, the narration was by Nigel Carrington. He didn't do much else, but he was actually nominated for a BAFTA award, a British award for the arts. I can't remember exactly what the acronym stands for.
Good.
But yeah, he got nominated for an award for how he narrated this part. And he did do it well. It was kind of very soulful, very, very like educated Englishman type way of talking.
Exactly.
And,
you could hear in his voiceover, even if he's just sitting reading the lines.
Yeah.
He does so with clear pronunciation.
No, he is. He's a very good storyteller, and he has like the emotional like integrity to it as well when he speaks. No, it was very good. I thought the narrative was very good, and like you said, the soundtrack, the music playing over it.
The soundtrack. I'd go ahead and call the soundtrack for this one of the game's strongest elements, maybe even the strongest element. The music, it's not a massive symphonic orchestra. It's much smaller. It's much smaller in scale, like an ensemble, a string ensemble. It starts small with a viola and a cello.
Yeah.
But then it gradually expands into a full emotional ensemble piece, right? You've got another viola, you've got a violin, not a choir, but there was some vocals, and a piano.
Yeah.
At certain points, it even felt like a little ensemble concerto.
Well, that's one of the things I was thinking when I was listening to it. That there is, I don't know, maybe there's a proper term for it, but there's something lonely and kind of isolating from a piano and a violin, like stringed instruments compared to other ones, right? There's something, when you just hear a single violin play on the wind, so to speak, it feels lonely. Piano playing, and done in that very slow, melodic style where it's just like makes you feel alone and cold in some degree. And like you said, it amps up a bit when the emotions become a little bit higher.
If a piano and a violin played, let's say, adagio, it could feel melancholic, and I can try and explain why a single violin or viola might provide feelings of isolation. It's been widely agreed upon in the musical community that the violin is the closest instrument ever made. It's the closest an instrument has ever come to sounding like the human voice.
So
if you could just hear a single violin, I can completely understand why that might sound isolating, because that in your mind might just also sound like a single person.
Well, yeah, I can see the association to like sobbing and stuff like that now, because like I said, you can almost hear emotion if you were doing those chords or whatever you do on a violin. So yeah, it added a great degree to, again, the narrative we were talking about, the loneliness, the crash, the melancholy, the trying to get through all of it.
Just like how I'd say audio is the most important part in a horror game. A game like this that's so emotionally heavy.
Yeah, it is.
The music is integral.
Yeah.
You cannot play a game like this without the music. It's not
agreed.
It's not gonna. The emotional beats are not gonna carry at all.
No, agreed.
I think in large part why this game had me tearing up. I don't even want to say tearing up. I was full on tears at the end, was because of the music.
Agreed. There is something that carries a magical
about the music
combination.
Plus the narration, some of the visuals, it all created an emotional climax.
Which again,
which is extremely effective.
Which is very good storytelling in its own right.
Very.
Because that's why we love movies, TV, and games as they are. Okay, anything else audio? Should we go to gameplay?
What gameplay?
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's so funny because we're on the edge of everyone talking about mixtape and the fact the only gameplay in it fundamentally is battling of tongues in teenagers' mouths.
Yeah.
This game had none. Like,
this is what no gameplay looks like.
That's one of my biggest like faults with it is it, like most walking simulators as you play them, you'll maybe have light puzzle mechanics or light inventory keeping, so you'll find a key and then you'll find the door to that uses the key, things like that. There'd be like a slight interactive aspect to the game itself, so that you are doing the actions, right?
Interaction is the key word in that sentence.
This has none. This is a go
Zero.
on the keyboard and just WASD. Oh, a torch. Sorry, I lie. You can switch on a torch.
Yeah, it doesn't interact with anything though.
No, and that's it. There is nothing else you do but walk around. Like you. Yep. And I kind of get, okay, that they wanted the story to be highlighted, the stuff like that. But it for me, it pushes that boundary. Is this a video game?
Yeah.
Is this a game?
That's such a good question, because in this case, I think a question like that is completely valid.
Yeah.
You can 100% ask this, is it a video game? Because it ticks boxes that you genuinely think would make something qualify as a video game.
Yes,
right.
yes.
This is you can walk around in this space.
Yeah, you have control of which way you go, and if you don't
Exactly.
want to go and stuff like that. Yeah.
Exactly. There is a beginning,
Yeah.
and there is an end, and you control the pace.
Yes, very true. That's very true. And how
If I stand still for an hour, the game's not gonna do anything.
That's exactly right. But that is the kind of like the threadbare immersion aspect. I'm going to play this game,
is.
and it's not going to have a sad ending because I'm not going to actually step any more than 5 steps. So there you go.
How about that? Take that game.
Exactly. And that's what just got me. That's what, like, a lot of people. I looked at reviews and stuff in the past when this game came out, and a lot of people came to the same thing, that this felt like a short story film. Like this, you could have just watched this person in first person do this on the island whilst listening and stuff like that.
But if I watched this as, like you said, a short story film, I don't think this would have hit. I don't think this would have hit as much as it did.
Do you think there is the interactive nature of walking amplified your enjoyment of the narrative, like you doing
I think the interactive nature of looking around did.
And you having control of where to look around, as in you have the director. Yeah.
I am going to circle back to my favorite bit of storytelling in this game. Finding the sonogram on the table, which would not have happened if I didn't have the ability to look around.
Yeah, that's right. If you hadn't gone into the building and looked in the right
If this
spots,
was a film, I'd only have seen that sonogram if the film showed it to me. If the film was intentional in giving me that information, which the game was not.
It's very true. Yeah, and you could very much skip that bit and not notice the sonogram at all.
Exactly, you could just walk past the bothy.
But I couldn't play this game and think to myself, am I
playing video game?
Playing video game. Am I having gameplay? Is this gameplay?
I totally get it, and I don't really have a leg to stand on because you're right.
And the funny thing is, the length of this game is also, depending on how you do it, so like it's about an hour and a half to 2 hours long, which is also a short film, like a short film. Like
so short. People have gotten very mad with games being less than 4 hours, and this one's less than half that.
Oh, easy. Like, again, it is good. It is a good story. It is a good, but there is zero gameplay to it. Is this a video game?
Okay,
I'd say no.
I think there's some important nuance.
Yeah,
I think there's some nuance here that I would like to address.
Go on.
And that's that minimal gameplay is the point.
Okay.
I think the game is intentionally designed around passive movement and reflection.
Yeah, I agree. That I agree.
Right? I think if you, as whoever you are, started picking stuff up, started solving puzzles, it would kind of betray the point of the game, don't you think?
I'm not sure. The thing is, I've got the opposites to that. Have you ever heard of a game called Doki Doki Literature Club?
I unfortunately have.
Do you know why it was talked about a lot without spoilers?
Yes, because of some very
heavy subject matter, right? Yeah,
yes,
heavy subject matter. Now, the premise why that was, I'd argue that was a game, is because a lot of the things, the choices you made led to the outcomes, right? Which is kind of one of the aspects of the definition of games, like the roll of your dice, the question you answered has an aspect to how the game ends. Now, that game, much like this, it had very little actual gameplay to it. You chose where to go, who to talk to, who to befriend.
Gotcha. It was more of a visual novel.
So visual novels, I can understand sitting on that precipice of being a video game to a degree because you're choosing to do and which door to open fundamentally, or which door not to open. This had very small amounts of that. You're right about the sonogram, the aspect that you wouldn't have picked it up, that if you didn't pick it up, you could continue the story and you wouldn't know, and that is a decision-making aspect of the game to some degree. But the only thing about it is that I don't think... if I'd finished this game and didn't do it, I wouldn't really have missed out on much. Like, you had a big moment, but narratively this game wouldn't have changed. You could have gone from well, you could have gone through it quicker and probably not had that much more narrative to it than if you'd done it slower.
I hear you.
If you know what I mean,
get
because
what
a
you
lot
mean.
of it is.
I get what you mean. I half agree.
Yeah, okay, got you. I can see we're on two sides of the fence on this one in that regard.
Gotcha.
But yeah,
I completely get what you mean. And if I'm playing Saros,
yes,
I'm thinking, hell yeah, I'm playing a video game.
Exactly.
That's a video
yes.
game.
I am shooting
this,
things. Yeah.
In comparison, no, it's
Yes,
not
that's
a
what I mean.
video game.
It's a museum tour. That's what just kept going in my head.
Tour,
it's
but
a
it's
museum tour.
interactive.
It is slightly. It is slightly.
But it's interactive. I'm playing this on my machine.
You are. That's very true. That's you. Again.
So that is in just the extreme barest definition.
It is
a video game.
It is thread thin, I would say.
Absolutely.
But yes, I do see your point also. Anything else gameplay wise, which I can only answer is no.
I think
because
this is I'm liking this debate, but
you're like,
continue.
what? You didn't do the platforming section, Dave? Like the big platform and the boss fight at the end. You didn't reach the boss fight at the end.
What? You didn't get the secret puzzle?
The secret like awesome ending that happens when you do the quest line. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. If you pick up all the bobbleheads.
Yes, and you get all the exactly. I missed all those bubbleheads. Okay, so performance. What did you think?
Performance is an interesting one because this runs extremely well.
Of course.
It's easy to achieve high frame rates because, like I said earlier, we're playing the Landmark Edition that released in 2018 of the base edition, which released in 2012 of the Half-Life 2 mod, which released in 2006 maybe.
Yes, there's something.
Of course, it runs well.
It does. It runs perfectly fine. And like you said, it's not really going to be churning those graphics cards or pushing those CPUs to their limits in any regards. It ran perfectly fine. I didn't really see any problem with it, as long as you know, like you said, the era it's coming out in and what kind of, capabilities we had back then. This runs perfectly normal and fine. I had no problems with it.
It does. It runs like it's supposed to. There are some questionable game design elements used in the game, but none of it is, I'd say, performance issues.
No, exactly. Agreed.
I think it's absolutely phenomenal that a concept like this, like Dear Esther, has survived and evolved for almost 20 years.
Oh, very true, very true. Like we always go back to these when we go to old games. That paving the way to games and narratives we have now. These types of games did that, and this is another one where narrative is a strong point in video games, which of course I'm a massive fan of, and this does do that. Which again, it's always good to see the history that goes when you go back in time. What do you think value for money wise then?
Unfortunately, not so good.
This is like $10 across the board. You can probably find it.
I saw it,
cheaper.
and it sucks, but I think $10 is too much.
It is. Again, some of that is because it's such an old game. You got to, take into account games that are that old. The $10 is still kind of a lot of money. Like over time, it should be a bit cheaper than that. Is it still something I say you should play? Yes, especially if you're a bit older. I know it's a weird thing to say because life can be full of ups and downs.
Yeah,
this game could resonate with you playing it at a certain age compared to.
It's such an important distinction
age.
Like of the themes we talked about earlier: loss, grief, obsession.
Yeah,
all of those. You get a much clearer understanding the older you get.
You do.
So I think, people of a certain age would kind of find more value in a game like this than, let's say, a 17-year-old.
Yes, who's looking for, not that they're not as mature, but like you said, there's not much life in them yet to kind of fully get what this game's potentially putting out.
Any 17-year-olds listening to this, please don't be offended. But also, if you are, okay.
yeah, like, okay. What are you going to do
anyway?
But yeah, so it is what it is. I think $10 for a 2-hour game at this old, that is a bit steep, but it is. I would also say you should play it. Why not? It's actually quite good in a lot of aspects. It is.
I think it's an important hour and a half. You're not going to waste your time walking through this.
No, exactly.
We're not staring blind to the fact that, yes, this is $10 for an hour and a half that you don't really want to replay.
That's very true. It'd be kind of weird if you replayed that. Quite like 10 years time or something to rehash a memory.
Sure.
But yeah, this isn't like a replayability aspect of this game.
Or if you experience real loss in your life.
Yes, that would be an interesting use for it, because you're right. You could actually find some comfort, I suppose, if you do go through such things.
Yeah, but this does have some artistic value, and it is very emotionally impactful. I experienced that.
Yes,
I think
which again,
there's some value to be had here.
Oh,
I'm
agreed.
just a bit on the fence about it being $10.
No, I can understand that. So after all this said and done, what did we score it? What did this walking simulator in the Hebrides? What score did it get?
Our scores, let's say, were all grazing in a field, baaing all over the place. And they were full of wool. Our scores are a load of sheep. It's very nice. It's very cozy. And the shepherd were looking after them. But one day our shepherd does not return to the flock, and we are left alone to survive and fend for ourselves. Day by day, week, month, year by year, the flock gets smaller and smaller until only one sheep remains. And that sheep is a letter grade rating of another C-.
That was a great story. I love the idea you played for 2 hours in a field on the Scottish island, and all you can think about is sheep. Like it's all sheep everywhere, David. It's sheep. There's lots of sheep, and then there's no sheep. It's what it's like.
There's one sheep. Oh, sad sheep. Oh, man.
No, it's great. That's what the country's like.
It's a C- sheep.
It's a C- sheep, which again is actually kind of a high score, taking into account you're not boss fighting, jumping around, sailing, and then jumping out of planes and all the other things games give us today. That's actually a decent score. That is the same score we gave Tales of Noir and just the other day the game Crazy Taxi gave the same. So it is good. It is worth a try, especially like emotionally, sorry, if you're feeling something and you want to go into something that hits your feels. This does do that.
It does.
But yeah, a bit expensive on that set. But so yeah, C-. So yeah, take it as it is. Play it, don't play it.
I think for some people this is going to be a hard F.
Yes.
For some people this might even be such an emotional awakening that it could be an A.
And there have been games that have literally done that to people. They have actually helped people through really bad times and really harsh trials and stuff like that. So yeah.
Yeah. If you're in a place in your life where you think you might need a game like this to resonate with you, please, I'd recommend you give Dear Esther a try.
I thought you were gonna. And please, I recommend Cyberpunk. Because if you're going through a dark time,
2077.
you need scantily clad robotic women and huge men. Sorry, I'm going on a tangent. But yeah, try this game by all means.
You're not wrong.
No, it's true. That can help you through it too. Don't get me wrong. Cyberpunk can help. So yeah,
but anyway,
C-.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Critical Arcade Podcast. If you can subscribe, punch the subscribe button. Not your actual screen, though.
Part of me kind of wants them to do that though, just because it'd be funny.
Just once. I think. But one of those old CRT monitors.
Oh, those are hard to break. Those are like curved screens and stuff. That you need to punch that hard. Or can you remember touching the screens and it was fuzzy with static?
Of
are
course,
you old enough to know that? Yeah.
How did that work?
I don't know.
But it was fuzzy.
It was fuzzy. It was great. Anyway, yeah. But smash the like, hit the tiggle. Touch
I always
the follow.
hate saying these things.
I know it is.
But
gross.
yes, smash the like button.
Nice.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Dave,
do it.
Where can we follow you?
I am out and about, but because I am from the UK and all the delightful sheep-filled fields,
Yeah,
as
you're
Nick
Chinese.
seems to, I do happen to own one of the isolated islands in the Hebrides. It is very cold. It is very cut off, and I will place you there. And the fun thing about the Hebridean Islands is there's no internet. There's no internet at all. There is just a surplus of sheep. I don't think there's one. There's going to be so many sheep here you won't be able to sleep because of the bars and the bar ramus and all the other things that come out of them. And not only that, you can only eat grass. There you go. You're going to perpetually just be eating the grass with the sheep on a Hebridean Scottish island somewhere.
Yeah.
So yeah, if that's what you want, by all means follow me. If not, then don't, because that
Don't
sounds
follow
like
Dave.
a strange life.
Don't follow Dave. Dave, how about rather tell us what have we got lined up for next week? Oh no, I just saw.
Yeah, I know.
Oh,
it's
no.
one of those ones
Oh,
where you
no.
go, list, why do you hate us
List,
so?
please. The list has giveth, and
Yeah,
the
taketh
list
away.
also taketh
Yeah.
away.
Because next week we are playing the Game Boy Advanced version of the Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Which, wow, that
Why
sounds...
list?
I just love the idea. Maybe it's a banger. Maybe no one's playing it, but it's actually fantastic.
Oh, really? Maybe the 2005 Game Boy Advance release of the Chronicles of Narnia is good.
It was the best version of it. It's better than the movies, the books. It's just great.
Really?
I doubt it. But listen next week to find out if it is potentially the best game that was ever released in the Game Boy Advance.
Listen in next week if it's any good.
Yeah, shock value for you.
Yeah, we'll see you then. Cheers.
Cheers.